we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Rick Green here with David Barton. We're applying history and the Bible to the culture and the things that are happening in our nation today. And, David, we've got an interview today that I think is going to be an issue that hits home for you. I know you have kids in the military. You obviously love the Second Amendment. And like me, you can't stand it when government takes away our ability to defend ourselves and literally puts us in a position of being vulnerable to an attacker, but especially when it's a member of the military.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things I used to say a lot was, and by the way, let's just be real clear, when you go into the military, you give up certain of your constitutional rights. You give up your right of association. You can't be involved politically as you wanted to be. You give up your right of free speech. You don't talk about the commander-in-chief as you would if you weren't a military guy. There's just certain aspects of rights that you give up because we want the military separated from the civilian sector. We always want the civilian sector to be superior to and above the military. And so because of that, there are some constitutional rights that will be limited and that will be in some way suppressed when you get in the military, but not all of them. And so one of the things that I used to kid about all the time, talking about guns in America, was, you never see shooters go into a place where there's lots of guns. They don't go into police stations and shoot them up. And they don't go into gun stores and shoot them up. And they don't go into military bases and shoot them up. And then Fort Hood happened. I thought, oh, my gosh, I can't say that anymore. But then I found out that they don't allow guns to be carried on the soldiers can't carry guns. The soldiers get in trouble for having guns in their own military bases, their homes. And I thought, what?
I had no idea either. I mean, when Fort Hood happened and I found that, I was shocked.
I was too. I was shocked. And it turns out that it happened right at the last of Clinton's administration, that he's the president that took it out as he was going out of office. And so it happened. And then here we turn around again with the second shooting at Fort Hood. I mean, we have a repeat. We didn't learn from the first time. And so military bases, fair game to go in and start shooting things up. And it's happened this time. There was an MP who had a gun that was able to approach the guy and he shot himself. But that blew me away. And so we've got a lot of folks that are stationed all over the world, military folks. We're really blessed. WallBuilders Live, the podcast downloaded all over the world by the military, Afghanistan, Iraq, all over Europe. We get responses from military guys all over the world. And here's an email response I got from one of our military folks that's up in a fairly remote area. They're in a fairly wild part of the country. And this thing about not being able to carry on base, here's what they said. And this is the email they sent me. It said, we're not allowed to carry concealed even on post. So even if you have a concealed carry license, you can't carry on post. And it says, and if a soldier discharges a personal firearm on post outside of hunting in an authorized area with a license, it's a federal offense and a felony. So you have these massive tens of thousands of acres of post, but if you discharge a gun on there, it's a felony. Or if someone, now grab this, or if someone breaks into our house on post and we shoot to defend ourselves in our house on post, it's also a felony. Or if I look in the backyard and see a moose attacking a child in the playground, and yes, moose on the playground is a concern up here because they regularly troll the neighborhoods, we can't shoot the moose to protect the child without it being a felony. We're supposed to go outside and yell at the moose and throw something to distract it and call the MPs. What?
Unbelievable.
I can't defend my home. I can't defend my kids. I mean, all right, like I said, military guys do give up some rights, but the right to defend your family, the right to defend your home, you give that up? Since when?
So this is what happens when you get these left-wingers in office, and then they love using our military as a social experiment.
Well, this really ticks me off too, because this is the same stupid attitude that, hey, if you have someone attacking you in an alley, just tell them to wait a minute while you go call the police, and while the police are coming, let them continue to attack. So if a moose comes after your kid, you go call the MPs? Are you kidding me? You can't do anything to save that child's life? How long does it take an MP to get there across several thousand acres of post? Yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous stuff, and that's why so many schools have now started moving to arm their teachers. We talked to the folks out in Brady, Texas, superintendent out there. The average police wait time response call is an hour. You're going to wait an hour before somebody shows? And this is just the ridiculous stuff, and you're right, when they start making the Army into a social experiment, or a way to move through an agenda that has proven not to work, it puts a lot of lives at risk, and we should have learned our first lesson from Fort Hood, and we didn't. Now we've had a second lesson, and this is something we've got to eventually learn from if we're going to save American lives.
Well, it sounds like it's one of those issues where we need some wisdom in the form of some Texas common sense, which means we need Congressman Louie Gohmert. He's going to be with us when we come back from the break.
That's good. Well said. Congressman Louie Gohmert, Texas Commons. I like that. That's good, Rick.
He's got it, and we need more of it, but I think Washington needs it more than we do. Louie Gohmert with us when we return on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Shortly after the American Revolution, America had become the envy of the world. It still remains a wonder of the modern world as 219 years later, America has become the longest ongoing constitutional republic in the history of the world. What was the foundation upon which our founding fathers established this great nation? According to John Adams, the foundation was Christianity. John Adams declared, "The general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. Now I will avow that I then believed, and now believe, that those general principles of Christianity are as eternal and immutable as the existence and attributes of God." According to founding father John Adams, it was the principles of Christianity which formed the foundation for American government.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. We have today our good friend, Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas. Congressman, always good to have you, sir.
Always good to talk to you. Thank you, Rick.
You're like a lone rational voice in Washington sometimes, it seems like. We actually hear common sense come from you, and it just seems foreign when it's coming out of Washington.
Well, it's because in Texas, it's common sense. Here in Washington, it's just sense.
I love it. Do you ever feel like you're, on the USS Enterprise waiting for somebody to beam you, or actually I guess you'd be on the planet getting beamed up to the Enterprise, but just the lack of common sense. We all know insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It looks like that's what we're doing on our military bases, not allowing our soldiers to carry a weapon to defend themselves.
I mean, here, some of them get in a plane and fly up with thousands of pounds of most powerful explosives. Some man artillery, massive amount of firepower. Some manage missiles that deliver incredible amounts of firepower. Some in infantry, they're carrying M4s, rocket-propelled grenades, they're grenade launchers, you name it, shoulder mounted weapons, all kinds of things. When you say, "Oh no, but we're not going to let you carry a pistol."
Yeah.
So it just seems a little strange. Now, in talking to commanders, some express concerns that if they have come back from overseas, that there may be some people that are stressed out that maybe need to get checked out and make sure that they're prepared to adjust back to the civilian realm before they go carrying a weapon. But that's why I changed my amendment from just saying, if you're in the military and you've qualified to fire weapons, then you can carry on post. But we modified that with deference to some commanders to say, okay, a commander can have a choice. You can either have people on a duty roster where they walk around with guns in areas that people haven't been carrying guns, or you let people carry guns. And so there are questions about, what kind of process should they have to go through, because, overseas, most of them are authorized to carry, all kinds of powerful weapons. So it just doesn't make sense. But one thing that made a lot of sense was an article a psychiatrist had written for the Wall Street Journal that was published, where he talks about the mentality of people that go in and commit these kind of mass shootings. And what he pointed out rang true with the events that most of us are familiar with. The individual had to make sure, they had to be sure that he would be able to terminate the shooting event, that he would be in a place where nobody else would have a gun, that he would be the master of the whole episode. And then so often in these cases, when somebody is about to arrive who has a gun, then they turn their gun on themselves, that kind of thing. They want to be the ones that are in full control. Well, if you have an area, Rick, where other people are carrying weapons, like Nadal Hassan, I mean, he would not have started shooting like he did if he had thought one of those people around him was immediately going to be able to pull a weapon and stop him right off. Then he's humiliated. He's not the big, powerful master that kills, 13 people or so. In his case, he did get shot, which, as the psychiatrist points out, makes clear to others you've got to have complete control so nobody can shoot you. You stay in control the whole time.
So that's an extra benefit then. I had not thought. I always thought about it just from the standpoint of you'll stop these mass shootings quicker, and all the data shows where you are allowed to carry in situations like that. It's only 1 or 2 people get killed instead of 10 or 12. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is this psychiatrist is actually saying you may prevent it from taking place at all.
Prevent it from ever happening. In locations where people have weapons, and the mentality of the shooter is normally they want to be in complete control. They want to be the ones to say when it's terminated. And then as soon as somebody approaches with the gun, so many of them turn their own gun on themselves so they never lose control. So, yeah, it is a preventive measure. People walking around with weapons, whether they're concealed or open on a military installation, people know, wow, I might get shot by a bunch of people before I could do anything but look foolish. And their goal is not to look foolish, but look in control. So, yeah, it is a preventive measure.
What are the, when you talk about this kind of thing in Congress, not only in the military-based situation, but, gun-free zones and all these other places where we think it's somehow going to be safer to say nobody can have a gun. So now the crazy guy knows this is a place where I can be in control. How does the opposition respond when you say we're inviting these kind of shootings whenever we have a gun-free zone?
Well, there's some people in Congress who have had shooting incidents in their family, and look, I totally understand their concern, and they first think about, gee, we've got to stop guns. They don't want to hear about any country like Rwanda where maybe there were 800,000 killings by machete, or that kind of thing. They don't want to talk rationally. They just have an overt aversion to people having guns. They just can't wrap their minds around it. They can't talk about it rationally. They won't look at the facts. They just think, oh, well, if you allow guns, people get shot. And I can tell you, having been a prosecutor, a judge, a chief justice, especially my years on the bench as a judge, crimes that involve guns, as I've tried to think back, I could not recall any defendant that had gone into a store and bought a gun through, either not at a gun show and not at a gun store. That's not where criminals get their guns. They don't want anybody having their gun registered. They'll break into somebody's trunk. They'll buy it out of somebody's trunk somewhere. They'll break into homes and take guns when, that's criminals commit criminal acts.
Yeah.
They're the ones that don't abide by the law. So when you have a law that severely restricts the freedom to carry a weapon, then it's only the law-abiding people that ends up without guns. I mean, the bumper sticker has been belittled, but it's true. It's just no way around it. When guns are outlawed, only outlaws have guns. It's very simple principle that's true.
So what's the likelihood that this policy potentially could change, that we could actually allow our folks on bases to be able to defend themselves?
Well, that's the big question, but we're battling an administration that is determined to keep our military from being able to defend themselves properly. Look at the rules of engagement. I mean, look at the fact that even though this commander-in-chief has only been in command of the battles in Afghanistan for 5.25 years, where Bush was about 7.25. President Bush was commander when there was really quite a war, and there were 625 precious American lives that were taken in that 7.25 years. President Obama comes in, and he's trying to wind things up, wrap things up, but people end up being killed in his 5.25 years. Going back, I think it was through the end of, or through halfway through May, it was 1,628. So over 1,000 more deaths under Commander Obama than there were under Commander Bush in Afghanistan. There are many times more serious wounded military members under Obama than there were under Bush. So this is serious stuff. I mean, we have basically made our military weaker when it comes to defending themselves. So when we take on a policy like this, where we would allow members of the military to carry weapons, I was fine leaving it with the military installation commander, whether you wanted to allow concealed carry or overt carry. Normally, when you're out in a foreign theater, you have overt carry. People see you carrying your M4. It's kind of tough to conceal. But leave that to the commanders, up to them whether it's concealed or not. But we also knew if we completely left the issue up to the commanders on any military installation, they would be guided by the commander-in-chief, who would tell them, you don't allow anybody. That's the kind of thing we're dealing with. When I read statements of crew members of a C-130 gunship that was in the area when the Chinook went down in Afghanistan, carrying so many of our SEAL Team 6 members, there were all kinds of reasons that Chinook should never been allowed to take off. But the C-130 crew was saying, they saw some people moving in military fashion, and they were not allowed to shoot them, take them out. There might be civilians in the area. They watched them get up to a high place and set up for the shooting. the Chinook starts coming into land, they watched it fire once and miss, and watched the second and third rocket-propelled grenades strike the Chinook with our heroic SEAL Team 6 members in it, and they weren't even allowed when they reported with the imaging they had. Well, it appears they're breaking down their equipment and preparing to leave. They were still not allowed to take them out, so they were able to, no doubt, fire another day and kill Americans another time. Just as we've seen in the last few days, we release absolute murderers in return for getting someone back who left his post. So this is just a different approach to the military that's gotten a lot more of our people killed. And so we feel like, gee, we have the responsibility for passing laws, for discipline. That's all part of the Constitution. So good order and discipline, seems to me, would be helping the military prevent themselves from being killed.
No doubt, no doubt. Last thing I'll ask you, Congressman, and I know you're not the kind of guy that at all votes based on what polls say, but it does help to know where the attitude of the country is. Have you seen anything on this particular issue? I would think most people would have enough common sense to say soldiers should be able to defend themselves, but I haven't looked. I haven't even seen it.
No, I haven't. On this, I was just guided by more experience and just what's right for our military to protect them. And so I hadn't seen polls, but I guarantee you in my part of Texas, and I would imagine most parts of Texas, unless it's the People's Republic of Austin, most parts of Texas the majority would feel like we need to allow our military members to protect themselves.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, man, we wish you the best on getting this on the bill, and for the sake of our soldiers, for the sake of those that are laying their lives down for us, is the least we can do is at least give them the ability to defend themselves.
And I want people to understand very quickly, though, that they say, well, gee, Jesus said turn the other cheek and blessed are the peacemakers. Look, those are our charges to us individually. But the Bible makes clear, though, that in an orderly society, you're going to have a government. And as Romans 13 talks about, it's there to encourage good, but if you do evil, be afraid, because God doesn't give the government the sword in vain. When you're in the military, it's not about turning the other cheek. You are there to protect the freedom of the people whose charge you have. You are there to punish evil, to protect. And that means you don't turn the other cheek when you're in the role of the government.
That's right. That's right. Good stuff, Congressman. We're so glad you got that common sense, and you're taking it to Washington. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thank you, brother.
That's Congressman Louie Gohmert. Back in a moment with David Barton. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution, but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall, in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty, and Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our founding fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Thank you, Congressman Louie Gohmert, for being with us. And, David, we were joking about common sense. He set us straight again. He said it's common sense in Texas. It's just sense in D.C. It's not very common.
Yeah, that's right. It's not common.
True.
But, he made so many good points. And I don't think I'd ever heard before about the psychological analysis on the shooters, that they always want to be in complete control.
Yeah, that was news to me.
That was news to me, but it makes perfect sense. They go into areas where they can be the ones in control, and if somebody comes in and interrupts that control, they kill themselves. And so it would be preventative to have guns exposed where they can't be in control, they can't take control. That would save their lives and the lives of those they take. But I was really struck with what Louie said about that this administration is determined not to let our troops defend themselves. And I don't know if you recall leading up to 2008, but CNN, all these others, had the rolling tally of all the soldiers killed under Bush, all the soldiers that were there, and that's another 3. I haven't seen that tally once, and yet, as Louie points out, we've had more soldiers die under this president than died under Bush, and that, the war was so unpopular. How come the media doesn't tell us about that? And by the way, he's right. I've had family members overseas serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. On the last trips to Afghanistan, I had our family being shot at by the enemy, and by the rules of engagement of this administration, they're not allowed to shoot back at those they see shooting at them. They put them in their sights. They're not allowed to pull the trigger. So our guys get shot at, and they're not allowed to shoot back, even when they see the people who are shooting at them. It's unbelievable. And SEAL, I don't think I realized that about SEAL Team 6, that gunship, the C-130 gunship, had the other guys in their sights the whole time.
I never heard that.
That is
crazy.
Unbelievable. Louie is there, and what he's proposing needs to be done. So, folks, call your congressman. Tell him to get on board with this thing. It's time to save some American lives, and this is a way to do it.
Yeah, this is when you got to make some phone calls on, because like Louie was saying, it's you're up against the administration on this.
That's right.
This is for them, it's back to that social experiment, and they don't want to have their social experiment overturned, so we got to get the people involved and let your voice be heard. Thanks for listening today to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.